Ambassador Sikri, let's focus on our neck of the woods, our immediate neighborhood. Another death of a Hindu man now being reported by ANI, by NDTV, by Hindustan Times, that Kokan Das has succumbed to his injuries after a violent mob attacked him on New Year's. That has happened alongside Shah Rukh Khan's KKR being asked to drop a Bangladeshi pacer from his team. KKR has issued a statement saying that it has complied with this intervention from the BCCI. What do you make of these developments? Some, like Suhasini, for example, posted on X today saying, if the government is engaging with the government of Bangladesh, which we are, if Foreign Minister Jaishankar could be present in Dhaka, engaging with Bangladeshi politicians, why suddenly have we seen this shift in policy when it comes to the IPL? What are your thoughts? And of course, this tragic death, the images of Kokan Das on our screen, even as we speak about cricket, it's often counterintuitive. Many of us wondered why we had to go and play that match with Pakistan after Pahalgam, but we did, and the government drew a distinction between multilateral tournaments and bilateral ones. What do you make of what's happening?
Well, I think first of all, I would say right at the beginning that External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar's visit to Dhaka was a good gesture, because he went for the funeral of Begum Khalda Zia and he handed over Prime Minister Modi's letter to Tariq Rahman, expressing Prime Minister Modi's condolences for the passing away of Begum Khalda Zia. And indeed, Begum Khalda Zia's legacy, I would say, in two parts. One part of her legacy has very much been the revival of democracy in Bangladesh, because in 1991, after 15 years of military dictatorship in Bangladesh, first President Ziaur Rahman and then President Ershad, it was Begum Khalda Zia and Sheikh Hasina who combined forces, who came together and forced President Ershad to step down peacefully and revive electoral democracy in Bangladesh. So I think, and that way, again, second time in 1996, when Begum Khalda Zia, at the end of her first term, had elections which were rejected by the people. They thought they were unfair. And then Begum Khalda Zia joined hands again with Awami League and others to bring in the caretaker system of government and to redo those elections. And then, of course, we know that Sheikh Hasina won those elections. So I think Begum Khalda Zia's legacy to democracy is important. And I really hope that in keeping with that legacy, Tariq Rahman will agree to have inclusive and participatory elections in Bangladesh. That's one aspect of it. Government of India has always dealt with the government of the day and their revival of links with the BNP. It's always been there. I mean, always we all talk to all parties, but the messages and all the important signals that India wants to continue the democratic system in Bangladesh with free and fair and participatory elections. Significantly, Dr. Jaishankar did not meet Muhammad Yunus. And that is a significant aspect, because everybody else who went among the foreign dignitaries for the funeral duly called on Muhammad Yunus. Our External Affairs Minister did not. And I think that signaled India's extreme unhappiness with the way in which the Yunus regime has been completely unable and unwilling. I think unwilling here is the key word. Unwilling to control the attacks on minorities. These attacks, began right on 5th August 2024. I think Sheikh Hasina's plane would barely have left Dhaka when the mobs, and it's all a mobocracy and complete anarchy in Bangladesh, even today as we speak, the mobs targeted two things. One, they targeted anything to do with the Awami League, Sheikh Mujib's statues, any building named after him, Dhanmondi, his home, everything. The second was the minorities, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Christians, the Sufis, and the Ahmadiyyas. I mean, merciless killing. Absolutely reminiscent of 1971. And we know that the 1971 genocide of Pakistan against the people of the then East Pakistan had been likened to the Nazi treatment of the Jews. And absolutely in that same style, merciless. And I would say that this time, 18 months, this is even longer than the 9 months of the Liberation War of 1971. And these 18 months have seen a continuation. Properties have been confiscated, businesses have been destroyed, professors have been forced to resign if they're not Muslim, and, primary teachers have been forced to resign. Every time they're told, I know people who've told me this, that their land has been taken, here's the money, take the money and go. They just want them.
And yet, not to take away from the horror, Ambassador, what you described, but yet you do believe that the engagement between Delhi and Dhaka must continue. and perhaps hoping for better times after an election does take place, if it is indeed an inclusive election. But at this moment, the Awami League is being excluded from that election. My
Well,
question to you is, given that engagement is continuing through these awful times, and they are awful times, and the Hindu community, religious minorities are being targeted. Yunus has taken very long to hold these polls. He doesn't seem in control, or perhaps he's unwilling and unable both to bring order to the streets. My question to you is, do you agree with the decision of the BCCI to ask KKR to drop the Bangladeshi pacer? I know it seems very small and irrelevant given that lives are being lost and people are being killed. But these are always the tricky questions for governments to decide on. There was a furor after India played Pakistan in the aftermath of Sindoor and Pahalgam. So I just want your perspective on this.
Well, I must say that at one point, yes, you're right. Government will always deal with the government of the day. We have said clearly that there will be no substantive relations till after the elections. We have also said equally strongly that we want the elections to be free, fair, and inclusive. Only then will they be credible. So that at that level, that government to government, the minimal, as I said again, Dr. Jaishankar did not call on Mohammed Yunus. I think that will continue its own way. But you cannot take away from the popular feeling of absolute disgust, of absolute horror. And government of India has said this so often. You know, on the 8th of August last year, Prime Minister Modi, in his message of felicitation to Mohammed Yunus, actually mentioned the treatment of minorities, because even in the 4 days between 5th and 8th of August last year, the killing was so intense that Prime Minister Modi felt obliged, felt that he had to mention it. It was so serious. So I think that government has expressed its views, but right down the line, the fact that the killing in Bangladesh is now replicating what has been happening in Pakistan all these decades, which has meant that, the population of minorities in Pakistan has come down to, not only single digit, but like less than even a single digit. Like 1%, little more, little less than 1% or something. So I think that the popular horror, with the very deliberate way, Deepu Chandra Das, the way he was pulled out of the factory, handed over by his own factory, the people who employed him, the mob outside, on some trumped up charges of blasphemy. The president, Mr. Bishwas, who has been literally on his return, he's an entrepreneur, he returned from his job and he was pulled off his motorbike, yanked off, dipped in petrol, and set ablaze. What is this? It's worse than medieval. It's barbaric, and it's to send a deliberate message: A, to India, saying this is what we want to do, and B, to the other people there. And I think,
sorry to interrupt. Let me bring in Suhasini. Suhasini, I'm going to take the cue from what you wrote on X. You believe that there's a contradiction somewhat. You didn't use that word. I'm using it. You believe that there's a contradiction somewhat in the fact that Foreign Minister was in Dhaka. Master Secretary draws a distinction between attending Khalida Zia's funeral memorial, meeting his son, and very distinctly and pointedly not calling upon Mohammed Yunus, and therefore making the point that all is not normal. Where do you see the contradiction between Delhi's engagement with Dhaka, 2 steps forward, 1 step back as it may be, and what has happened with KKR and the Shah Rukh Khan-led team?
No, Barkha, you're right. It is a contradiction. I think it's more than a contradiction. It is sending very, very confused signals for where the government stands on any of these issues. Ambassador Sikri pointed out that Mr. Jaishankar did not meet Mohammed Yunus, who's the head of the interim government, but he did go to Dhaka, and he did meet with the foreign affairs advisor of the interim government, Tawhid Hussain. So I don't understand what that message exactly is. If we just want to say whatever we do, whatever the government does is correct, okay, then I'm willing to just go with that. That the government decides at different times. The Indian cricket team a few months ago played cricket with the Pakistani team, did not shake hands with them or accept an award from a Pakistani ACC chief. But External Affairs Minister Jaishankar there in Dhaka shook hands with the Pakistani leader who was representing Pakistan at that. So, I just feel that when a country of India's stature and a country of India's particular relations in its neighborhood, let's remember, this is not just any old relationship. This is a relationship with Bangladesh. When the Bangladesh cricket team began in 2000, India was instrumental after that in bringing it into the test playing nations. I don't know too much about cricket, My own question is that if you are going to cut away at each of these places of the soft side of the relationship, then what is that message you're giving in terms of the actual bilateral relationship? Are you saying now Bangladeshis are not welcome to take part in the IPL? Is that going to be a rule? Or is it a response to these horrific, barbaric acts that have happened inside Bangladesh to Bangladeshi citizens? In which case, are we now creating a caveat that says when minorities are attacked in any other nation, India will not play cricket with them, or India will not accept their players in the IPL? In which case, when minorities inside India are attacked, are lynched, are killed brutally, pulled out of trucks, and beaten to death, is there going to be some kind of an acceptance that what are we going to do then? Say certain states where these things happen, those are not. I'm not being absurd here, Barkha. I'm saying, what is the line? What is the message the government is trying to give? Or is it that we wake up every morning and New Delhi has a new policy? On one particular day, we had on 16th December, as far as I remember, there was the Bangladesh Liberation Day. The High Commission held a meeting. I think Ambassador Sikri was there as well. Ambassador Sikri was not there, but other former Indian ambassadors were there. The MEA's representative, the entire desk of the MEA that deals with Bangladesh, attended that. The next day, the Bangladesh High Commissioner was called in and given a démarche over the killings inside Bangladesh. Now, my own understanding is that if a country of India's stature wants to deal with a situation with an important neighbor like Bangladesh, this is a neighbor who abuts 5 of India's states. This is a neighbor that has a land boundary of 4,000 plus. It's the longest land boundary India has. If that is a country that India wants to have a serious relationship with, or make its unhappiness clear, if it wants to say we don't like what you're doing and we are going to deal with it, then don't trivialize it. Don't make it into, okay, now we're not going to play cricket with you. Now we're not going to do this with you. But on the other hand, we will attend a funeral in Dhaka, at which point we'll meet so-and-so leader, but we won't meet so-and-so leader. I'm just saying, I don't think that there is a consistent, clear message that behoves a country of India's stature here.
Padma, which side of this do you weigh in on? Two very differing perspectives there.
I agree with parts of both what both my fellow panelists have said. Barkha, I was watching a recent show on Christians being attacked in India ahead of Christmas. That poor boy from the northeast being lynched by thugs in Dehradun, and that other guy who handed out swords to Hindus to defend themselves and said we should form Islamist-style terror groups and all that. No whataboutery here, but like Suhasini, I'm really wondering what is the message? What are we actually doing? However, I think I'd like to go a step further and say that I think what the government is doing is it has sent Minister Jaishankar to Dhaka for the funeral. That was appropriate and proper for a relationship of the size and the depth and the magnitude as the one we have with Bangladesh. Mr. Modi's letter very clearly spoke. In fact, it spoke rather glowingly of Khalida Zia's funeral, even though the relationship with India was not that, great. But he did sort of say, as I mentioned, say a few words, something about she made many important moves, including the strengthening of India-Bangladesh relations. So there have been the right noises, but there have also been silly moves like this cricketer, being sent back. I mean, I think what we unanimously agree on is that no matter which religion, law in any country must act against these instigators of violence and such unlawful acts. And it would help if the top leadership spoke out. But okay, that hasn't happened so far in Bangladesh, but what is the top leadership? I mean, even if Yunus were to offer words of condemnation or sympathy, it's hardly likely to change anything on the ground now. He is definitely on his way out.
So you don't agree? So you don't agree with the BCCI intervention in Shah Rukh Khan's team?
Absolutely not. I think it's ridiculous. I mean, we played against Pakistan on the heels of the Pahalgam attack and Operation Sindoor. And, and all this sort of this dithering over which way to react, I think is completely unnecessary, but understandable, because I think some of those moves are more for the opticals of those moves within India, for instance, as BCCI, for instance, and I think some of them also emanate from pure greed. At least the India-Pakistan match after Operation Sindoor, it made millions and millions for all those who were involved. So I'm sorry to be such a cynic, but I think that was what really prompted them to go ahead with the match, and I don't agree with that at all. Either you condemn something or you don't. Just for the sake of money to play one of the biggest, one of the matches that a match that is one of the biggest revenue earners is certainly hypocritical. And but the moves have been made. In fact, we have even reached out to the Jamaat Islami in Dhaka. There were meetings, unconfirmed meetings, which apparently, going by the Jamaat Amir, were kept secret at India's request. So there have been moves, we're making all the right moves externally, and we're making a lot of moves that look silly from the external policy point of view, but I think they should be just laughed off as being largely for the optical effect on domestic audiences. For instance, this Bangladesh cricketer being sent home. So I, as I said, I tend to agree with parts of what Suhasini and Ambassador said.